On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, we break down a pretty special weekend of Toronto Raptors hoops. RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick are the truth, and Vince Carter gets the night we all deserve.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, November the 4th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the bad website that sucks at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, baby. It's free to join. Great place to come hang out. It's very happy in there these days, even with the 2-5 start. Good vibes abound. Come hang out. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join. Of course, you can also go and subscribe for free to the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter, where today I'll have some words dropping about Vince Carter and dunks, two of my favorite things in the entire world. So you can go and subscribe, get that free to your inbox every single day. You get Katie Heindel as well. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started here on your Monday edition, breaking down a jam-packed weekend of Toronto Raptors basketball. 2 games, 1 win, a pretty fun game on Friday against the Lakers that did not start very fun, but certainly there was a crescendo as that game progressed. And I think we're going to have to talk about RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick off the top. We will get into Vince Carter and the wonderful retirement ceremony on Saturday night against the Kings and that awesome game that had a whole lot of poeticism to it. We'll get to the good, the bad, and the but we will start talking RJ and Gradey, and we'll do that with our pal Vivek Jacob, who was there Saturday as well. How the hell are you, pal?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about Vince. I'm excited to talk about RJ. I'm excited to talk about Gradey Dick. But as you said, man, even with the losing, this is what we expected, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be quite a bit of losing this season. But we think that there's going to be a lot of fun had along the way because of all the development that's going to be happening.
Yeah, and I mean, if RJ Barrett and Gradey Dick are as good as we saw them play over the weekend, and you get Emmanuel quickly back, maybe as soon as tonight against the Nuggets, fingers crossed, and you get Scotty Barnes back in a few weeks, they'll still probably lose more than they win, but is there like kind of a recipe here for kind of a fun team in an Eastern Conference that if you look at up and down the standings is kind of a disaster right now? I don't think it's crazy considering how the Raptors have played despite their extreme shorthandedness. Let's get into RJ and Gradey because they were the story of the weekend from a basketball perspective. Obviously, we'll get into the Vince Carter stuff later, but RJ Barrett is now being tasked with being the lead guy in the offense, at least until Quickly comes back. There were stretches in that Kings game where they kind of either removed Davion Mitchell from the floor or just kind of put Davion Mitchell off to the side while RJ Barrett essentially ran point for this team. Tons of pick and roll, tons of, just sort of bully drives, doing his thing, getting those paint touches and creating for others. A really, really impressive weekend from RJ Barrett. On Friday against the Lakers, he goes for 33, 5 and a career high 12 assists, 14 of 22 shooting, 3 of 5 from downtown. He was sensational. And then going toe-to-toe with DeMar DeRozan down the stretch in the OT win over the Kings on Saturday, 31 points, 9 boards, 6 assists, a little less efficient, 10 of 26. We can talk about that a little bit. But let's start with RJ Barrett. We'll get to Gradey in a sec here. RJ Barrett, what do you make of this sudden increase in creation ability, in his just sort of all-around incredible offensive production so far this year? 29, 6 and 7, just under 59% true shooting, a 3-to-1 almost assist to turnover ratio. Bonkers stuff. What do you make of all of this?
I think the biggest thing is the playmaking. Obviously we wanted to see if the efficiency from last season as a Raptor could carry over. We are seeing that for the most part. He's at you mentioned the 10 for 26. We saw in his first game back, he had the hot start and then kind of went 5 for 16 the rest of the way, if I'm not mistaken. But that you kind of expect in the first game back, that the legs aren't going to quite be there. So, and right now, to carry the load the way he is, you expect, lots of pressure, lots of attention to be paid to him because, teams know they don't have to account for Scotty. They don't have to account for Emmanuel quickly. And that's where him recognizing that and saying, hey, let's trust my teammates. Let's, see how I can kind of orchestrate the offense and make things happen. That's the part that he's really, really excelled at. We've seen really good stuff between him and Yak in the pick and roll. We've seen him, drive, get those paint touches, and then kick it out for threes. Gradey Dick's been a nice beneficiary of that. So I think the most important elements of the passing game we're seeing in terms of making the pass at the right time, picking the right guys to pass to at the right time. And so it's been amazing to watch RJ, and it definitely, changes the way you view his ceiling if this keeps up.
Definitely, right? Like, we'll see how sustainable it all is. He's currently rocking like a 46% clip from three. That's probably going to come down, especially since he's already taken more pull-up threes this season than he did in his entire time with the Raptors last season. He took 3 pull-ups last year. He's already taken 8 this season. He's hit 2 of them. That's never really been his bag. And I think that's where you'll probably start to see the efficiency wane a little bit. Even right now, he's below 60% true shooting for essentially the first time since he became a Toronto Raptor. And, that's because there's that extra burden of creation sitting on his shoulders. This is what happens when you scale up. I'm kind of amazed at how much it has held up. He's at, again, about 59% true shooting. The free throw percentage really dragging that down. And we can talk about that if you want. The late game free throw issues against both the Lakers, but mostly the Kings. Overall, though, the playmaking stuff from him looks at the very least like it has like some merit to it, right? I think this was the thing he struggled with the most with the Knicks, right? Was like you put the ball in his hands, asked him to create from a standstill, and it just didn't work. I think the team context is a lot more friendly to that right now than it was when he was with the Knicks. I think having Jakob Poeltl, this incredible screen setting big, is such a big deal for him. It just launches him into space, kind of takes advantage of him maybe not having the biggest first step in the world. And he kind of gets into the teeth of the defense, and all of a sudden defenders start bouncing off of him, and he's getting to his spots, and he's able to create out of that too. Some of the skip passes he's thrown have been fantastic. I think the biggest development to me here, Big V, is that if this is even sort of like sustainable, not at the full level it's been so far, but it's something RJ Barrett can do for stretches. The Raptors have 3 guys who can credibly carry an offense when healthy in the BBQ trio. That's a huge deal. Like, that allows you to get so much more creative with your lineup constructions. It allows you to not have to be so severe about staggering quickly in Barnes and making sure one is always on the floor. If Barrett can also moonlight as a lead creator guy for this team, that just adds another layer of dynamism to what should be a pretty damn dynamic offense once everything comes together and they're healthy again. They're 14th in the league in offense right now, and that's with not having Scotty Barnes for the last 3 games and quickly having played 14 minutes on the entire season. It's very exciting stuff. Obviously, the defense still needs to come a long way. Some really bad stretches of defense this weekend for RJ Barrett. That's going to happen. But like, as far as the ceiling conversation goes that you mentioned before, I think it probably depends on how much he can kind of find that defensive ceiling and become passable. He's probably been the worst defender of the Raptors so far this year. We can't mince words about that, and that's a big part of this conversation. But for now, I'm just thrilled about the playmaking stuff and what it means for the dynamism of this offense that I think has a shot to be like a legitimate top 10 unit once they get their guys back and healthy. And that is a pretty good place to be here. Let's talk about Gradey Dick, also a big part of allowing them to be a good offense. He was emptying the freaking clip over the weekend. It was awesome. Kind of rough starts in both games for him, but strong finishes. He talked about after the game on Saturday, kind of how it's all about how you finish. Like, the Gunners spirit is deep within this one. And 21 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 60% true shooting so far. He's ascended to being a guy who elicits a crowd reaction just by the mere act of catching the basketball. That's pretty fun. The Raptors offense is 15 points per 100 possessions better when Gradey Dick is on the floor. He's awesome, having a great time. Big V, what have your observations about Gradey Dick and his improvement been so far?
Yeah, I mean, his evolution as a scorer going from his rookie year to this year is incredible. I mean, the diversity of his shot profile is incredible. Like, you can't speak highly enough about what he's doing so far. And I think What's really impressive, I think, is the way that he will make uh, Scotty and RJ in particular getting into their best positions uh, that much easier. And, if you look at last season where he was primarily a corner shooter, if you have to prioritize Grady Dick as a corner shooter, you make life just that little bit more difficult for RJ because ideally you want him shooting the corner three.
Mhm.
And now when you can get Grady Dick in more of those positions above the break, if you have Quickly healthy, those are two guys that are really good to have above the break. And that I think allows, when Darko's running his sets to be like, okay, now it's a lot easier for Scotty and RJ to function. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I take away in the way that he's improved that. Then, of course, you look at the way he's attacking the bucket. That's been incredible. And to go back to the point you were making, about the gunslinger mentality, I thought it was super encouraging against the Lakers that he went 6 for 16 in the first half and then goes 7 for 10 in the second half. And he's
Yeah.
just like, I'm going to keep going. This
Mhm.
team needs me to score. I know I can score. And to see that transition, right? Because there were definitely, you look at the first half of his rookie year, there was a lot of uncertainty in his game, right? And
Mhm. Mhm.
figuring things out and like, you wouldn't put it in the category of like not knowing if he belongs, but it's like, hey, how do I, make it at this level? And you're
Mhm.
seeing a lot of the stuff that says, hey, this is what I'm going to be at this level, and it's going to be very difficult to contend with.
He causes defenses to panic. And you're seeing it. The above the break stuff you mentioned, Blake Murphy had a great piece today about how the sort of evolution of his 3-point shooting from the corners to above the break has kind of shifted the geometry of the Raptors offense in a really substantial way. And yeah, I mean, we saw it in the game against the Kings, right? They're running like Spain pick and roll with Mobo and Barrett and Dick. Dick's the second screener in there. He pops up wide open for threes. And like the defense is totally freaked out because Barrett can get to the hoop. Mobo's the vertical spacing threat in that situation. Grady Dick is just pulling the defense all the way out above the arc. It makes everything so much easier for everybody. And when this team gets all of their starters back, I was bullish on the starters before. I'm even more bullish having seen what RJ and Grady have done this weekend. And yeah, the Grady Dickening. It's happening and it's beautiful and it rocks. And we're gonna come back on the other side and get into another guy who used to make defenses panic, but in a different kind of way. Mostly in the oh no, I'm gonna be on a poster kind of way. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Vince Carter and the beautiful retirement ceremony we saw go down at Scotiabank Arena, the house that Vince built on Saturday night. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're all trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that is not easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself, who make things better. And that can also be a reminder to send a thank you to your therapist. Having a therapist can be a great way to talk out the issues you're going through in your life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Back at it here with Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 from Sportsnet from Toronto Life magazine over the weekend as well, as he was covering the Vince Carter ceremony, the retirement of his number 15 at Scotiabank Arena Saturday night. I mean, lots to dig into. I thought it was perfect. I thought they hit every single note. I think listening to Vince talk before the game, I know there's this still sort of section of the fan base. It's like he's never formally apologized for the role he had in the very messy divorce between Vince and the franchise. I get it. It'd be nice to hear those words, but listening to him talk, it's palpable how important this whole thing was to him. And I think that to me is enough in lieu of like a formal apology. I think like I don't know, man. I thought they handled it really well. I thought Vince handled it really well. I thought it was beautiful to listen to him talk. And I think the crowd pops when he, screamed primally into the night during that ceremony as the banner was going up. I thought kind of told the whole story. It felt like a really wonderful burying of the hatchet for good between the Raptors and Vince Carter. And yeah, man, I just kind of wanted to get your overall impressions of it. It was pretty beautiful.
Yeah, and I think what made me even more appreciative of it was you go back to just the night before, and it was kind of an awkward Raptors fan experience where you have all these Lakers jerseys, you're getting Bronny chants, and
It
it's
sucked,
like,
man. That sucked.
and what I wrote in the Raptors in 7 newsletter was it was a great reminder of both Vince and Raptors fans at their best. And I think, when you look at that moment when Vince comes out and you hear from North Carolina, 6'6" guard, number 15, Hall of Famer.
Oh, it's chilly up in here.
And then he's coming out and he's in tears and the crowd is giving him all this love. And it's like he is so charged up by that love that he can't help but scream. Like, he literally could have stuck his arm in the basket again in that moment, I think.
That was the one thing missing from the ceremony. He did not dunk at any point in the night, and I think that is lame. We know he can still dunk. We know it's there.
I felt like I wanted to dunk in that moment. Like,
yeah, well, a couple extra inches to the vertical that you didn't realize were there.
that was the most energy I felt in the building since, maybe when the Raptors were running it back.
Yeah, the 15-game win streak, the Pacers game where they came back is the one that I kind of narrowed in on. Is like, that's the last time it felt like that in there.
Yeah, to see, and again, the way Masai spoke, right? And when he's talking about, he taught us how to fly. And, for those of us who couldn't fly, he taught us how to, believe that we can fly. And, then to introduce Vince, then to see the banner go up, iconic, right? The through the legs, to have
a damn good banner. Well done.
To have that is just another tick in the box for a franchise that continues to evolve, right? When you look back on the 30 years, the things that have especially happened over the past decade, becoming a winning franchise with that We the North era, then graduating to winning a championship. And yeah, we're entering a new era now and rebuilding. But to have that first Raptors jersey hanging up there, it's so important for this franchise. And I think with Kyle's words during that video tribute, with DeMar's words, with Steph Curry's words, I think we can all acknowledge that, Vince absolutely does deserve to be the first one there.
Yeah, I mean, he was the first guy to make the franchise matter, and I know it all went to crap, and we all had feelings about that. And though I think, time is pretty effective for healing, I think also watching endless dunk montage is pretty good for healing. It's like being in a Bacta tank, just kind of making you kind of come back to life. Yeah, I
do you have a top three?
Top three Vince dunks?
Yeah, in game.
So I think if we're going just straight Raptors dunks, obviously the Frederick Weiss one is there, but let's go just while Raptors. He's playing in a Raptors jersey. The like half court lob against the Clippers, is nuts. It's incredible. Okay, it defied physics for him to be just kind of like floating in air like that for as long as it seemed like he was before he threw that thing down. I think, there's. The guy posterized Dikembe Mutombo, may he rest in peace. That does not happen, and it did with Vince Carter because that's how ridiculous he was. That's probably on the list. And then there's one I talked about this a while ago. This is from the first Raptors game I ever attended, or at least was like cognitive of my attendance of. And it's not like the sexiest dunk. It doesn't get all the plaudits, but I think because I was there and saw it in person, it probably is a sentimental pick. But it's in that Bucks game in 2000 it's like the day after the Team USA roster comes out. Vince is not on it. Ray Allen is. Vince goes for 47, and his last or second to last bucket in that game, he drives in from the 45 on a pump fake, throws it off the glass in kind of this like awkward fashion, and then appears on the other side of the rim to throw it down. Like, what?
Yeah.
That shouldn't happen. That's, again, the physics just not making sense with Vince Carter. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers dunk is just doesn't make sense. It was just phenomenal to see. And then the call, the Clippers broadcast call is what makes it even more special
Oh,
because
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
just so salty.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
the
everyone, you
fans
got what you
they
came to
wanted.
see.
Yeah.
I will put Vince, obviously you talk about things that don't happen and things that you don't see. Vince literally jumping on top of Tim Duncan and throwing it down.
Another good one. Yep.
Yeah,
Holy God.
that was insane. And then I'll also throw in Vince driving and taking off from near the free throw line over Ben Wallace. I don't know if you remember that one. But
I watched enough montages that I'm sure I saw it over the course of the weekend, and it all blended together with all the thunder. Yeah.
And like Ben Wallace is like full stretch, full vertical, and Vince is like a good whole arm over him.
Nuts. Can we quickly talk about the extremely hacky on the nose writing of the script for Saturday? Vince Carter retirement night. RJ Barrett, part of the Carter generation of Canadian players, up against DeMar DeRozan, carrying the face of the franchise baton from Vince, clearly influenced by him in some way in the way he plays the game, going toe-to-toe down the stretch while Chris Boucher, a child of Vince, has his best game in years. Okay, script writers, we can have subtlety in art, like it doesn't have to be hitting you over the head all the time. That was pretty damn awesome, man.
Yeah. All of that tying in together, seeing all those former teammates of his, like when Alvin and Mo Pete and Antonio Davis and Kevin Willis, all those guys are getting introduced before.
Kevin Willis, by the way, looking like he's 35 whilst being literally 62 years old.
It almost made it even more perfect that Charles Oakley made it like just as the show was beginning, and Vince was like, "He's here!
He's here! My guy!"
So that it made it even better. Of course, Oak got stuck in traffic.
2 hours before the game, Raptors PR head Jennifer Quinn was like, "Oak is en route." didn't inspire confidence he was going to actually be there. Yeah, perfect timing. You can see Vince was just totally thrilled to see him there too. Oak, how could you not be excited about Charles Oakley? I don't know, man. As a child of Vince myself, who became a fan because Vince Carter dunked cool, who had a headband phase when I was like 8 years old because I thought, hey, that looks cool. It did not look cool on 8-year-old Sean. I can tell you that. I think I feel very grateful and lucky to have been there. It was pretty amazing. A really great capper. I'm glad that we never really have to relitigate the Vince Raptors relationship anymore. And it got me really excited for future retirements. I've always been kind of like, jersey retirements, who cares? No, jersey retirements, cool and good. Do all of them. I'm in it. It sounds great. Kyle Lowry getting his jersey retired while Terrence Ross and Serge Ibaka and DeMar and I don't know, Gravis Vasquez are all there. Sign me the hell up for all of that nostalgia. Any parting shots on all of it from you? Any lasting thoughts from Vince night?
Yeah, I mean, I think just with DeMar being there, I did think about DeMar, right? And what it would be like to see his jersey go up. Obviously, you look at the franchise ranks and it's like DeMar. And so that name will be up there one day. And obviously Kyle's will be there one day. And so I think that's what I thought about, man, that it's going to be so cool to see those two go up. And you're right, more of these numbers going up and just adding to the lore and the franchise history is going to be so special.
Yep. Pretty cool stuff, man. We're going to come back on the other side, round it out with the good, the bad, and the from a wild weekend of Raptors basketball on top of the Vince Carter stuff. We'll do that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page where you place your bets. It's super easy to use app. You can go and peruse, make those in-game bets. Of course, it's not just the NFL. You want to go throw some money down on, an NBA night of action, spreads, money lines, the whole 9 yards. You can go and do that as well. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started again with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and of the Locked On Podcast Network. Wrapping things up here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7, Sportsnet, Toronto Life Magazine, TikTok, all over the damn place, as we continue talking about a crazy weekend in Raptors basketball, 1-1 against the Lakers and Kings. Let's get to the good, the bad, and the a thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, and a thing that's got us a little bit intrigued from the latest set of games played by your Toronto Raptors. I will go with my good off the top. And it's my bold preseason prediction that the Raptors would lead the NBA in rim pressure. Guess what? 7 games in, the Toronto Raptors leading the NBA in shots taken at the rim as a percentage of their total shots taken. 40.5% of Raptors shots coming at the rim, balanced out by being 29th in three-point frequency. They're the stylistic counterpart to the evils of Boston Celtics basketball. If you're mad about the product, if you're thinking ratings, about the ratings, watch the Toronto Raptors. They're here to save the NBA as the greatest rim pressure team you've ever seen, or at least that we've seen through 7 games of this NBA season. That is my good. They have themselves an identity, and they're a team, much like Vince Carter, who lives at the rim, and I rate it highly. Big V, what's your good from the weekend?
Well, hey, we've talked plenty about Grady. We've talked plenty about RJ.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to be here, as the president of the bandwagon to talk about my buddy Ochai.
Hell yeah, man.
I mean, he is just rolling with it right now. Dropping the 22. He's shooting. Well, you talk about the rim. He is shooting 70% at the rim, which would be a career high. And again, just simplifying his offense and just the way he's recognizing opportunities in open lanes, I think has been such a big thing for him. And it's like, wow, I'm a really good athlete. And so he's getting himself these opportunities to just get all the way to the basket. He's finishing so well. I mean, some of these running bankers that he has, because you wouldn't quite call them layups. I think they've been so impressive. And yeah, he's knocking down enough of the corner threes. Seems like he's only taking those, above the break threes when the shot clock's down or, the offense is like really mucked up. So, those are situations that you can't really control. So, yeah, I think the way he's refined his offense, the defense is steadily improving as well. Yeah, just really happy with what I've seen from Ochai.
Yeah, a shout out to, I think it was Cause in the Lockdown Raptors Discord, my nemesis. But sometimes it's a broken clock, right? Twice a day type situation where he has a good take. He just posted a screenshot of Ochai Agbaji, 13, 5 and 2, 68% true shooting. OG Anunoby, 13, 4 and 2, 57% true shooting. Who better? Right now, the numbers suggest it's Ochai Agbaji, baby. This is the kind of propaganda we love. All right, let's get to the bad. And really not a whole lot of bad to pull from the actual basketball. No bad to pull from the Vince Carter. So I will say the bad is letting Drake on the broadcast while he was absolutely corked out of his mind during that game against the Kings. I did not see it live. I watched it back yesterday. And he's embarrassing. He's a loser. We have moved past the point of needing Drake tied in with the Toronto Raptors. I don't think he's still officially the global ambassador. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But if he is still, they don't need it anymore. This franchise has grown up. They are no longer needing to tie themselves to this guy. And I think TSN indulging him when they had like 2 or 3 commercial breaks where they could have just taken the headset off of him after he said himself many times, you shouldn't let me on the broadcast right now on account of I'm loaded. I think was a pretty bad call to not take him off the broadcast. I think indulging his weird Jesse Reyes creepiness was not cool. And I think him kind of being a little sad boy about DeMar DeRozan and the idea of him getting his jersey retired was pathetic loser stuff. They don't need Drake involved with the Toronto Raptors on this kind of level anymore. What you got for your bad?
I think one of the big things we were going to watch out for this season was the defense. The defense has not been good.
Nope.
And yeah, I think, when you look at the starts against the Hornets and the Lakers, I think those are particularly discouraging. And I think
that first quarter against the Lakers was like all-time bad defense, man.
Yeah. And, for Darko to have to call 3 timeouts in the quarter for there to be just a complete lack of execution in their schemes. Granted, they did do it better in the third quarter, and that's kind of what triggered the comeback. But yeah, seeing those poor starts, it was definitely a relief to see a good start against Sacramento. And so hopefully that continues on the road, because I'll tell you what, you get slapped by 20 in the first quarter on the road against some of these teams, you're not coming back.
You are very much not. Of course, the way to fix the defense is which is just play Jonathan Mobo all the time, because apparently when Jonathan Mobo's on the floor, the Raptors cannot be scored on. Yes, is that so far the Toronto Raptors are 22.2 points per 100 possessions better with Jonathan Mobo on the floor versus when he's off. Their defense is insanely good when he's out there. It's at about 100 defensive rating, like right near even 100 points allowed per 100 possessions, which is extremely good, and 25.1 points per 100 better when he is on the floor for the defense versus when he is not. They are again, an all-time catastrophically bad defense without him, and basically the 2000s Detroit Pistons when he's on the floor. He was a plus 17 in 16 minutes on Saturday, despite fouling out. His defense, his rebounding, his rim scoring, all of it is stuff that is either badly needed or intrinsically tied into the identity of the team. And I am a huge believer in Jonathan Mobo, plus minus wizard. Of course, it's very early, small samples and all of that. But if this keeps up, I don't know how you send him down to the G League. He's kind of essential to the Blaine defense at this point. And I am all for Jonathan Mobo getting as much run as possible to try to stabilize things with his size and length and disruptiveness and all that good stuff. What is your
So my it was such an amazing night, such a positive night for Vince. My is just, could the banner be better placed? I think after everything was complete and you're looking around, it is difficult to see it from up top.
Right.
And when you see how visible all the Leafs banners are,
there's a lot of them.
I even walked over to the other side just to see what the view was like from there. And so I think that's kind of my where it's like, hey, this is something that could maybe be fixed. Is there a place that we can put it that's a bit more visible? Yeah, that's my
That's a very astute point, I think, that you've made here, Big V. And one that we'll leave the show off on for today. We'll come back tomorrow, of course. We'll talk about Raptors Nuggets, which, part 2, that was super fun last week. Obviously, no Scotty Barnes this time, but that's fine. Lead creator RJ Barrett is here. But either way, we'll have that game covered for you tomorrow. Big V, anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Just the usual stuff. Go check out the Raptors in 7 newsletter. Subscribe if you haven't already. And just continuing with my regular stuff for Sportsnet. I'm going to be doing a little bit of stuff for Toronto Life magazine, so you can watch out for that as well. And you can follow it all on Twitter at Vivek Jacob.
We will do that, good sir. Please go support the newsletter, follow, subscribe, rate, review on the podcast app of your choosing or on YouTube, and join the Discord again. Newsletter and Discord links in the description of the podcast, as always. We will talk to you again on Tuesday for another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. God, I'm off. I've lost the line.